It's waiting. Have you admitted? Sir? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me formally welcome you to CEDRON-Module Limited EDI Training Batch 23. I hope you all had a wonderful weekend. I hope you all rested well over the night. Welcome to the day one of our training session for the week. As we all indicated to you in the course of the registration, we told you we run this program from Monday to Friday every week. We are running the 23rd batch this week, which means we'll be running this program consistently for the past 23 weeks. We normally start our training with a pre-lecture quiz. Basically just to test your understanding of the subject we're about to present. And at the end of the training also, we still administer the same set of questions and quiz to test if you have been able to acquire the 1-2 hours training that we go through. I've been able to do that also. But we cannot continue to wait indefinitely. People who are most likely going to join us through the YouTube platform. We're on 3 different platforms. In the Zoom, the WhatsApp, the hard copies, and then of course we have the Skype component also for those who choose to. All right. Having said that, we will start the day, and as is our tradition, you see on your screen a picture, a very intelligent picture. I would like to start lectures with that of an elderly gentleman and a young lady whom sorry, please bear with us. We're trying to sort out some network issue here. We'll be back with you in a minute, please. Let's sort it out before we get unnecessary interruption along the way. It's just a minute with us. Yeah. So, sorry for the little interruption. As I was explaining, we have this picture on our screen of an elderly gentleman, a young lady whom seems to be giving an advice. An advice, of course, is printed also boldly on the screen. That's an advice we also like to key in and give to our participants. And in the beginning, clients that we should do more than just being salary earners, depending on only one source of income. As it's not likely, that situation is not likely to go very well for any of us. Whatever work they do, whether in the public or private sector, we should learn to have multiple sources of income, some other stream of income, not just relying on only one source of income. Because the situation is such that we find that the chances of being able to live comfortably on one source of income is not likely to be there. So the advice we like to give is that no matter what you do, even as a public servant or a private sector person or one who is self-employed, is to generate as many sources of income as you possibly can. We know the salary situation in Nigeria today. We know that minimum wage in the country today is 30,000, and we know what has happened to that salary increment. Not that only many of the states are not able to pay, but even when such payments are made, we've gone through some terrible experience lately where the inflation rate has eaten up much of the money. The several increases in the increments in the salary, that's a minimum wage. We've had two fuel price increases already. I understand by this morning that as yesterday or thereabout, the price of petroleum has also been dropped down by about 5 naira, but none of the filling stations are so far adjusted their price to that effect. What you find instead is if there's an increment, they quickly, within minutes, within hours, change their pump prices to reflect the new prices. But where there is a reduction, of course, that's going to be the last thing they want to do. They tell you they didn't get it at that amount of money, so they are not likely to sell until they are able to exhaust the previous deposit that they have. So that's the situation in the country. And then, of course, two major recessions in the last 8 recession, and then again, just barely about a week or two, we went back into another recession. All the salary and then they take on pay of Nigerian workers. And of course, we are also used to their members' salary or take on pay cannot take them home. That, of course, is saying virtually the same thing that this gentleman is saying here, that your take on pay in the form of a salary may not be enough to take you home. So the advice is given is that you should begin to think about. We are familiar also with a situation where our relations to Looks like the network is not being friendly this morning, but we'll see how it goes. Tried some other source now. Let's see how it goes. All right, so I think I've spoken enough about the picture on the slide, the opening slide, and the advice. Just to say that we also try to encourage our participants, our clients on this program, and then of course to actually commend them, because we believe they have this also at the back of their mind for them to decide to come and register for this program. So what we're saying in essence is that no matter what you do, okay, no matter what you do, take that bold step, take that action towards changing your source of, increasing your source of income, not just relying on only one source of income, because that is a much better decision for you to take than to be stuck in just one source of income, depending on your salary as their only source of income. All right, having said that, let's go to the topic of the day, entrepreneurship and skills acquisition for AGSMEIS. We will be looking at entrepreneurship, the training that we are providing. By the time you complete the forms, you will see where it's asked, what kind of training did you attend? Is it vocational or entrepreneurship? Ours is entrepreneurship. Basically, all AGSMEIS trainings are entrepreneurship training, while acquisition, vocational normally hands-on training with respect to specific professions and things like that. But this entrepreneurship training gives you some basic idea training on how to manage your business, manage small businesses, or manage your business which you are trying to run. It is a critical part of the training program since it's an entrepreneurship training skills. We've thought that it is very important that to start the day, to start this training, we should start with a background training on entrepreneurship, so as to lay the foundation for the rest of the topics that will be taken during the course of the week. After today's training, tomorrow we will be introducing you to feasibility studies and business plan. And subsequent day, we'll be taking you on financial planning and basic bookkeeping. And then, of course, sales strategies and effective sales and marketing strategies. And then we'll be looking at course on business law and registration and the compliance requirements for people who want to do business in Nigeria. So these are the core of the subjects that will be undergoing. Then, of course, we'll have a practical session where we'll also look at the forms which you complete towards applying for the loan, because any loan that you want to take in any place, if it's admission or you want to take a loan, a bank loan, or whatever, there's always a format, there's a template, there's a form which you have to complete. So we'll go through these forms together so as to be able to advise you, acquaint you with the expectations of that form, and then what you need to do before you apply for the loan. So entrepreneurship and skills acquisition for AGSMEIS. So we'll break down entrepreneurship, what entrepreneurship is all about, the kind of skills you require for entrepreneurship, and then of course AGSMEIS. We'll break down what AGSMEIS is all about. I want to believe that you know what AGSMEIS is all about. AGSMEIS is the loan scheme that you are trying to access. It is the agribusiness, small and medium enterprises investment scheme, which is the strategy, the CBN strategy towards providing funding for agribusinesses and SMEs across the country. That is what AGSMEIS stands for. But we'll be looking at it in more details, breaking down its components, what it entails, who is an entrepreneur, and all of those things. So that is our topic for this program, for this training. So let's start by looking at the training objectives. First and foremost, training objectives to understand the AGSMEIS loan scheme. That's what is the AGSMEIS loan scheme? We just mentioned that it is the initiative of the CBN with respect to providing funding for those who want to go into agribusinesses and then SMEs. Second, to expose participants to the objectives, the components, and processes of achieving the goals of AGSMEIS. That's what are the objectives, what are the components, and then the processes for achieving the goals of AGSMEIS. When we break down AGSMEIS, then we'll be able to see its various components, its various objectives. To understand the concept of entrepreneurship, here we'll be breaking down entrepreneurship, finding out what entrepreneurship is all about, defining entrepreneurship, defining who is an entrepreneur, what an entrepreneur does, and what it entails, and then giving some examples of entrepreneurs that we know as we know them. Okay, then to expose participants to the skills required for entrepreneurship. What are the skills you require for entrepreneurship? Okay, for you to be an entrepreneur, you need to have some basic skills. So we'll be looking at all of those things. Then to prepare participants for a life of entrepreneurship. Like we like to say, entrepreneurship is it's not a short time, it's not a sprint, it's not a short distance race, but it's a marathon, it's a lifelong race. Something that when you start from small and continue to grow big and big to the extent that our prayer is that it should outlive us so that it becomes, as it were, a major corporation going forward. Right. So outline this, let's look at our training outlines. So we'll be looking at these 6 major components of this training. The first is defining AGSMEIS, its objectives, its components, and processes of attaining its goals. And then the second topic in this discussion is defining entrepreneurship. Third is the type of businesses and vocational skills. And then 4 is consideration before starting a business. What are the things you need to consider before you start a business? Do you just go into a business because you see a colleague, Mr. A, successful in that line of business, or do you have to take a couple of things into consideration before you also go into that same line of business or some other line of business? Hurdles in the part of starting a small business. Anything that we do in life, there's no smooth sailing anywhere. There's no road that is smooth and even. They definitely have to run into some bumps and ups and downs here and there. Same also with when you want to start a business, you are most likely going to run into some hitches, some barriers, and some hurdles. So what are those hurdles? What are those barriers? How do you overcome them? And then how do you push on when you want to start small businesses? Then finally, sources of funding for small and medium enterprises. We're in this program because we are trying to assess some funding. So what are the sources of this funding? One of it, of course, is the loan, but other than that, what other sources of funding are there? We'll be looking at all of those various sources of funding in the course of this paper. Right, so that is our training outline. There's 6 core areas. I'll take them all one after the other. So we'll start by defining AGSMEIS. What is AGSMEIS? What is AGSMEIS? AGSMEIS is an acronym, and an acronym we all know is a word that you form by with the first letters of the words from a sentence. So for AGSMEIS, we have agribusiness. AG stands for agribusiness. Then SME, of course, is small and medium enterprises, and then the investment scheme. That's what AGSMEIS stands for. It's an acronym. Okay, an acronym that stands for agri-business, small and medium enterprises, enterprises investment scheme. Right. So what is AGSMEIS? Right. So what is AGSMEIS? We have defined it, we've broken it down for you. So it is an initiative of the Central Bank of Nigeria aimed at supporting the federal government agenda towards the promotion of agricultural businesses and small and medium enterprises as vehicles for sustainable economic development and employment. So it's an initiative of Central Bank of Nigeria, not just the Central Bank of Nigeria, but also the Committee of Bankers. The NISA Microfinance Bank that manages the AGSMEIS loan scheme is owned by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Central Bank of Nigeria owns 40% shares in the bank, the Committee of Bankers has 50% shares in the bank, and then NIPOS has 10% shares. Of course, I'm sure you're all aware of the Committee of Bankers. Committee of Bankers are made up of the management of all of the money deposit banks that we have in the country, the major banks that we have in the country. Okay, is a management that come together as Committee of Bankers, and they've set aside 5% profit from their 5% of their annual profit, which they have pulled together to form 50% shares of the NISA Microfinance Bank. CBN, through the NISA agency, controls 40%, has 40% shares in NISA Microfinance Bank, and then NIPOS. NIPOS own shares is in the form of the office space, which it provides to the bank, to NISA Microfinance Bank, in all of its branches. We are all aware that NIPOS has 774 branches in the 774 local governments in the country. So in each of these branches, it is supposed to have an office. Okay, so it has it's expected to carve out a space, an office space for NISA Microfinance Bank in each of these branches. So the whole essence really is that the NISA Microfinance Bank is supposed to be a rural bank spread across the entire country in each of the 774 local governments. And we're all aware that most of our villages and local communities are underbanked. So that's government's, also the CBN and Commercial Bankers' own strategy of taking banking to the grassroots, to our interior, to all the local government council areas in the country, so that they'll be able to provide financial services, banking services to the teeming population of our people who are in these rural areas. We are aware that 70% of our people live in the rural areas and hardly have any access to banks. Okay, today what we find in most of our villages and small towns is POS payment mode. That has taken over banking across the country. So where you have people having their POS, and then they have linkages with most of the banks, and they are able to collect money and then pay money on behalf of the banks, and then collect some commission on that. So the NISA Microfinance Bank is supposed to be able to provide the gap, fill the gap, build a bridge between the underbanked population in the rural areas and, of course, the major cities of the country as we have. And then for people to be able to also access and obtain soft loans, easily accessible loans from these banks. So the initiative of the federal of the Committee of Bankers and CBN generally is in support of the federal government agenda, as we say here, towards promotion of agricultural businesses, and then, of course, employment. But basically, when we say promotion of agricultural businesses, it's in the area of diversification. Okay, we are all aware that the government policy in the past few years has been that of diversifying the Nigerian economy. Why has this become necessary? We are all aware that Nigeria's economy is a mono economy. Mono in the sense that it is dependent on one source of economy, one major economic activity. That is the oil sector. Our economy is dependent on oil. Oil provides about 70% of our national revenue, about 95% of government's earnings. Okay, but when it comes to GDP contribution, that is not matched by the contribution of oil. And each time, as it were, we have a major crisis in the oil sector, Nigeria's economy takes a hit. Okay, we're all witness to what has happened during the coronavirus pandemic, where the entire world was shut down. Okay, the entire world was shut down. The industries across the world in China, Western Europe, EU, and the US, the economies of all of these countries were shut down. We're all aware that international travels were shut down. So we saw planes lining up international airports without flying an inch. All countries within, for a better part of 4 months, between March and June, were shut down. And because of these activities, the economy of most countries that rely on oil, on the petroleum sector, had a major problem. Okay, OPEC countries, that's oil producing and exporting countries, had major crisis on their hands. Okay, oil that was selling over $60 per barrel before the coronavirus went down deep down to as low as $20 per barrel. Of course, thank God it is beginning to pick up again, but that was a major challenge that we had. Nigeria's economy went into recession in the first quarter of 2020, and then we rebound. And then, of course, just 2 weeks ago, Nigeria's economy went down again into another recession. The hope is that maybe things will pick up early in the first quarter of 2021 for the economy to begin to inflate and then pick up all over again. But the challenge that government realizes that, look, there is no way that this country can continue to depend on oil as its main source of economy. So the drive, therefore, is for diversification of the economy. And which area has been identified as the best area to go in terms of diversification. Agricultural businesses has been identified as a major area where Nigerian economy can diversify, because it is one of, right from time, Nigeria's economy agriculture has been the mainstay of Nigeria's economy. But the coming of oil made us turn our backs on agriculture. But with the realization that dependence on oil alone cannot take us far, that is why now the government is beginning to think in that direction of reviving agricultural businesses in the country. And then, of course, the second area of diversification is the medium and small and medium enterprises area, because we have found that across the entire world, the SMEs are the bedrock for most major economies in the world. That is one vehicle that, if you are able to pursue it to its logical conclusion, we will be able to have sustainable economic development and growth in that area. So these are the two main areas that the Committee of Bankers and CBN had identified as an area where they can go ahead and support the government in terms of diversifying the economy. And of course, because these two areas are also major sources of employment, okay, these are the areas that, if well exploited and exploited, most of the unemployment issues that we have in Nigeria today will substantially be solved. So this is why the CBN Committee of Bankers came up with this initiative of the AGSMEIS loan scheme. So that is the explanation in that regard. Okay, so let's look now at the objective. You have defined AGSMEIS. What are the objectives of AGSMEIS? Objective for AGSMEIS: one, the first is to ensure small and medium enterprises have access to finance. Okay. Second, to generate much needed employment opportunities in Nigeria. Third, to boost the managerial capacity of agricultural businesses, SMEs, as pipelines for growing enterprises that can become huge corporations. And fourth, to develop the agricultural value chain and ensure sustainable agricultural practices in the country. Let's take the first one, okay? To ensure small and medium enterprises have access to funds. Yeah, we find that one of the major challenges facing those people who want to go into SMEs and then agricultural businesses is the issue of access to finance, access to funding. Okay, all of you on this program today have the idea of going into one form of enterprise or the other, one form of entrepreneurship or the other, but funding, access to fund is a major problem. We all know that today, if you approach the banks for a loan facility, we know how much that will take, the toll that it will take on your purse. If you approach a commercial bank or a microfinance bank today for a loan, you will be charged an interest rate of about 26%. Okay, if you are taking any facility at 26%, how much are you likely to be able to get, to be able to pay back that finances? Unless you are going to go into something criminal, it is going to be very, very hard for you to be able to access a loan at 26% and then make that business sustainable or be able to stay above waters. So that is where the issue is. So the AGSMEIS loan scheme was conceived in such a way as to be able to provide easy access to finance. And we'll be looking at that as we go down the line to generate much needed employment opportunities. Of course, I've already mentioned this. We know what is happening in our country today. We know that most of our young Nigerian graduates coming out of our tertiary institutions, when they are done with their services, most of them are out on the streets, walking the pavements of these countries, walking the corridors of offices in this country, looking for paid employment. Okay, there are simply no jobs there for the young men to do. You know? And then, of course, we know that with the coronavirus situation that we found ourselves, most of many organizations, companies and organizations have laid down their staff. Okay, today government has virtually placed an embargo on employment. Anywhere you go, you hear that there's no employment going on, unless maybe in the area of replacement and things like that. Okay, so one of the things that AGSMEIS seeks out to do is to be able to provide this easy financing, easy funding, so that people who are not able to find paid employment can go into and who can come up with ideas, startups, okay, or who are into small businesses can find a way of expanding those businesses and then become self-employed, and in the process be able to also employ others. So that's basically what the AGSMEIS loan scheme seeks to do, providing easy funding for our young men and women who are looking for jobs to access this fund, to become self-employed instead of waiting to be employed or waiting on the employment line. And those that are losing their jobs on account of the situation that we found ourselves today, to be able to also take that opportunity and see what they can be able to do for themselves. Then, of course, to boost the managerial capacity of agribusinesses and SMEs, here, the kind of training that we give, at the end of this training, is our belief, and of course, we have seen evidences of that from those that we have trained previously, that it is able, this short-term 5 days training is able to give them some background information and knowledge on how to manage their own businesses, how to manage their own enterprises. And that's what this training seeks to do. And that's what the AGSMEIS loan scheme seeks to do. That is why training is one of the compulsory mandatory components of assessing this loan. And finally, to develop the agricultural value chain. Here, we talked about the importance of agriculture and its value chain. Agriculture is not just crop farming. The value chain, when we talk about the value chain of any business, we are looking at the entire spectrum of that line of business. So when we are talking of agricultural value chain, we are looking at the farms, for example, from crop farming, from all of the implements that go into agriculture, the marketing practices and strategies, and then of course the processing, and then of course the export or the market activities that go along with that product. Okay, so that is the value chain. So agriculture is a very, very vast field. We have those who are involved in crop farming, for example. We have the off-takers. Okay, we have the off-takers. We have the suppliers of implements and equipment and insecticides and fertilizers and all of those things. We have those who are into processing of agricultural produce. Okay, and then we have those who are involved in the marketing, the exportation. That is the entire value chain. So what we're trying to look at in this training is to be able to provide you that broad spectrum so that you see the entire totality of the agricultural value chain. And then, of course, how we're able to sustain the agricultural practices that we have in the country. So those are the objectives. Those are the objectives of the AGSMEIS loan scheme. All right, so we'll now look at the components of AGSMEIS. What are the components of AGSMEIS? Remember, we said AGSMEIS is an acronym which represents agribusiness, and then the small and medium enterprises. Okay, these together are the vehicle for economic development and employment. So what we'll do now is we'll break down these components of this the AGSMEIS scheme, and then let's see what it entails and why there is the promotion of this scheme by the Committee of Bankers and CBN. Right, agribusiness. So we'll start with the AG, which is agribusiness. In 2019, that's just last year, agriculture contributed around 21.91% to Nigeria's GDP. In fact, this year, the last report by NBS, the GDP contribution came to about 30%, which is way beyond what it was in 2019. Okay, this is surpassed only by industry at 27.38% and services at 49.73%. Okay, although Nigeria depends heavily on oil, heavily on the oil sector for its budgetary revenue. Nigeria is predominantly an agricultural society with approximately 70% of the population engaged in agricultural production at subsistence level. Remember, I just mentioned that about 70% of Nigeria's population is actually in the rural areas, and most of the economic activities this 70% undertake is still also in agricultural production, but at very subsistent level. Okay, so despite that, we find that agriculture contributes around 21.91% to Nigeria's GDP. While Nigeria depends heavily on the oil sector for its budget revenue, now we find that in terms of GDP contribution, it is abysmally low. Okay, Nigeria derives 95% of its export earnings, okay, and 70% of government revenue from the oil sector. But in terms of GDP contribution, the oil sector contributes less than 10% to Nigeria's GDP. Okay, as at in 2015, it contributed just 9%. In 2016, just 8%. In fact, during the last NBS statistics releases, Nigeria's oil sector contribution still remain at 8.36% to Nigeria's GDP, which is abysmally low. Okay, so while we continue to depend as it were heavily on the oil sector, but in terms of GDP contribution, it is not making much of an impact. Okay, so it is this trend, the trend of agriculture, okay, with its high GDP contribution at 21.91% in 2019, but as at this year, as at the third quarter of this year, increasing to about 30%. Okay, it is this trend that the federal government, the government wants to leverage on. Okay, and that is why it is focusing on the oil sector in the attempt to diversify the economy. Remember, I talked at length about the government's desire and drive to diversify the economy. So it is in the agricultural sector is that area that has been identified as a possible area of concentration, so that Nigeria's economy can move away, as it were, gradually from oil. We'll be seeing more about the problem of oil, the oil petroleum sector in world economy, and then, of course, the need for us to begin to move away from that. Because with the current talk about climate change and the impact of oil and all of its effect on weather, on climate, and all of that, and people moving away, as it were, from petroleum, and of course the effusions into the ozone layer, diffusion of the ozone layer. Of course, tendency is that we will now begin to look at some other areas where there will be less pollution of an impact on the international climate. Okay, so this is what informed the current government effort and devoted energy to initiatives like the Anchor Borrowers program and now the AGSMEIS. We're all aware, I'm sure, of the Anchor Borrowers program. This is again another initiative of the CBN, where it is giving out soft loans to people in the agricultural sector, especially in the rice production sector of agriculture. We had stories, the wonderful stories coming out of Kebbi State, coming out of places like Ebonyi, Benue, Ogun, Lagos, and a host of other states where CBN is promoting and then giving out easy loans, Anchor Borrowers loan to farmers in all of these areas. Okay, so as to be able to promote the agricultural activities in all of these areas. We've had the stories of the partnership between Kebbi and Lagos State, where they have been producing, bagging and selling the lake rice program, for example. We know of the wonderful works coming out of Ebonyi and Anambra State with respect to rice production. Rice, Nigeria, we all know, was the net importer of rice, depending, as it was spending most of our foreign reserves on the importation of rice and rice products. Okay, to the extent that, as it were, while we were busy supporting the economies of countries like Thailand, Burma, and Pakistan, boosting their economy with the production of rice in their countries, we also have similar fields, vast fields in this country, very, very productive fields in this country, but we simply refuse to divert attention or put our resources into farming in our country. But with the current government in the last 3 years has changed the story, changed the narrative, so much so that today Nigeria is Africa's largest producer of rice, and then of course the world's 8th largest producer of rice. And if we remain consistent along that line, the hope is that we should be able to be self-sufficient in rice production and should be able to be exporting rice to other countries in Africa and across the world also. And that is the direction to go, and all of along the line. The first component, so this drive, that's the drive in the area of agriculture, contribution of agriculture. This drive is in recognition of the contribution of agriculture to economic growth and development, in providing food for the expanding population, increasing the demand for industrial products, providing local foreign exchange earnings for import of capital goods, increasing social income, in providing employment, and improving the welfare of citizens. Okay, so what we're saying basically here is that the entire drive in the agricultural business sector is in recognition of what it can do with respect to the economic growth and development of Nigeria, in providing food for the expanding population. Remember, Nigeria's population is over 200 million. In fact, in the last week or so, the Population Commission, MPC, has come out to say that Nigeria's population is about 206 million people now. So our population is increasing by the day, okay? And there's no country that can depend on importation of food. Okay, I talked about the massive importation dependence on importation of rice, okay, and poultry products into this country in the last few years, until the current government came and decided to ban some of those things. Okay, you remember the famous 41 items on the list, which CBN decided to stop providing foreign exchange component for, so that Nigerians will be able to look inward and make a difference in that. And on account of that, we know what has happened substantially in this country. Today, most of the rice eaten in most homes in Nigeria are local rice produced on our fields in our country. Okay, that is the only way we can go. That is the contribution of agriculture. Okay, it is also increasing the contributing to provision of industrial products, because as you produce more in the agricultural sector, this of course provide the raw materials you need for industrial products. And of course, as you export all of these things, we also are able to earn foreign exchange, okay, which we are also able, with the foreign exchange, and we're also able to import capital goods for our own industrial setup. And then, of course, in terms of social income, we are aware of the many people that have been taken off the streets of this country, who have gone into farming all over Kebbi State and northern parts of this country, for example, where they have been set up in cooperatives, in cartels, and then, of course, provided the implements and the instruments and the seedlings and all the inputs needed for farming. And at the end of it, by the time they finish production, of course, the off-takers, who normally the off-takers, that's the rice millers, come up to buy all of those things off them. So nobody loses at the end of the day. It's a chain, okay? And because of that, social income has also increased substantially in the country. We hear of so many of them in Kebbi State today who have, some have bought cars for themselves, some have bought bikes, some have got additional wives as they want, some have been able to take themselves on pilgrimage without having to depend on government. So that has been a major contribution of agriculture, of course, in providing employment, and then, of course, the welfare of the citizens of these countries. So it is these gains that explain the need to support the growth and expansion of agric and agro-allied industries and its associated value chain. So basically what we're saying is that the Committee of Bankers and the CBN support for agriculture is because of these gains, because of these contributions to economic and economic growth and development, to providing food for our expanding population, increasing our industrial products, providing local foreign exchange earning, and then, of course, for us to import capital goods, increasing our social income, and providing employment, and all of those things. These are some of the reasons why the Committee of Bankers and CBN have supported this AGSMEIS loan scheme wholeheartedly. All right, so let's look at the second component of AGSMEIS now, the SME component. Here, We've looked at the AG, which is agribusiness. Now let's look at the SME component. SME stands for the small and medium enterprises, okay? So the SME sector is the backbone of major developed economies, as well as important contributors to employment, economic and export growth across the world. What we're saying here basically is that it's not, we're talking about major developed economies, okay, not developing economies. So it's saying basically that even for major developed economies, the SME sector is the backbone of their development. Okay, it is the backbone of their development. It is a major contributor to their employment and then, of course, export growth. When we talk about SMEs, we tend not to realize what really constitutes the SMEs, okay? Because some of the major corporations that we see and know today started as SMEs, okay? Let me give you some clear examples. Okay, anytime we talk about companies like Apple, the Apple Computer, okay, the Apple Computer has moved from being Apple Computer to Apple Corporation to just Apple, okay? We all know that when we talk about Apple, the tendency is to think about Apple as a fruit, but no, Apple today, when the moment you mention Apple in international parlance today, we are talking about Apple as the technology company. Okay, Apple as a technology company. It started as an SME. It started by two young gentlemen, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, in the garage of their parents' homes in the mid-70s. Okay, it started as Apple Computer. It moved on to be Apple Corporation. Today, it is simply called Apple. And then they are the makers of Apple Computer, the iPhones, the iPads, the iWatches, the iPods, and all the I's that we know of today. It has an operating system, the iOS operating system today. Today, the Apple Corporation, the Apple as we know it, is a $2 trillion revenue earning company, but it started as an SME. Okay. The same also if we talk about Microsoft company, for example. Microsoft also started in the mid-70s, okay, by Bill Gates as an SME, but today it is a major corporation in the world today, with the world's richest person owning, being the founder and owner of that company. Okay, I just think in 2004, a young company, okay, they also started as an SME in the university, in his university dormitory, to show how these things, SMEs start, this organization start. So even for the major developed economies, the SME sector is the backbone of that sector. When we are talking about Amazon today, for example, it's virtually basically the same story. They all started small, okay? They are all IT-driven businesses today. So IT has taken over the world, and then of course, we know what the major difference it could make all over the world. So this is about the major developed countries. So if we are to also push in that direction, we know the difference it's going to make for our country as a developing country, okay? According to the Nigerian SME survey by PwC 2019, in Nigeria, SMEs contribute 48% of national GDP and account for 96% of businesses and 48% of employment. This is massive. We've looked at oil. We say the oil sector, despite its contribution of about 70% of government revenue, contributes less than 10% of GDP. But see what the SME in Nigeria is contributing today. About 50% of national GDP comes from SMEs, 96% of businesses, and then 48% of employment. So these are massive figures. Okay, these are massive figures that if you are able to push the country in those directions, in building up more of the SME base, then of course you know the difference that it's going to make. So the SMEs in Nigeria constitute a total of about 17.4 million jobs. Okay, they account for over 50% of industrial jobs and nearly 90% of manufacturing in terms of enterprises. So when we're talking about manufacturing sector in Nigeria today, most of the manufacturing that is happening in Nigeria today is at the SME levels, because we know most of the major corporations that we have in this country, back then when industrial activities was actually taking place in Nigeria, have virtually left. So what we are left with now are SMEs. Okay, we know of, if we go to Lagos, the Ikeja industrial area today, most of all those areas have shut down and companies have moved out of the country. And then, of course, maybe most of them have been taken out by churches. If you go to Sharada in Kano today, most of the major companies in those areas are all shut down. If you go to Kakoria in Kaduna today, all you see are carcass of the old textile industry. Okay, those are major industrial hub, major industrial productive activity in the country. But today, what we have is SMEs at that very low level of production, but they account for 90% of all the manufacturing activities that happen in Nigeria today. According to the NBS, National Bureau of Statistics, in collaboration with the Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, the SME sector in Nigeria is strategically positioned to absorb up to 80% of jobs, okay, improve per capita income, increase in value addition to raw materials supply, improve export earnings, improve import earnings, sorry, enhance capacity utilization in key industries, and unlock economic expansion and GDP growth. That is how massive that this sector can be, okay? 80%, if we are able to harness, if we are able to actually push the SME sector in this country to the level which the MBS and SMEDEN are looking at, then we are saying that the SME sector is strategically positioned to absorb up to 80% of the jobs in Nigeria today. Okay, already it's accounting for 50% of industrial jobs. Okay, so if we're able to push it to that extent, build on it the way that the rest of the world has been able to build their SME sector, then of course 80% of the jobs that we have in this country today will be absorbed by SME sector. What we're saying here is that SMEs are the small and medium enterprises. All of you who are on this program today have one idea of entrepreneurship or the other. So if we are able to all build on it, find the financing, build on it consistently, we'll find that these enterprises that can be able to employ additional people, because the expectation is that if you're able to access this facility as a startup and you get up to 5 million, for example, you are expected to be able to employ at least one person. If you are getting up to 10 million, you should be able to employ up to like 2 people. So that is in itself a way of providing jobs for the many who are unemployed today. Remember that Nigeria's policy drive is that it wants to take 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in the next 10 years. And these are part of the strategy towards achieving that goal. Okay, right. So it is this potential which the government wants to explore and expand, but it realized that there exists a missing middle, which is that SMEs still find it hard to access funds. So what we're saying basically here is that government has come to the realization that, look, if we can exploit these 2 areas, the agri-businesses and then the SME, okay, then of course that we'll be able to achieve all of this potential. But then you realize that there is a problem. And what is this problem? That there is a missing middle. And the missing middle is that SMEs and agricultural businesses find it hard to be able to access funds. That is the missing middle, okay? So the AGSMEIS loan scheme is therefore government's response and solution to the missing middle, okay? The AGSMEIS loan scheme is therefore government's response and solution to the missing middle. That's providing affordable and easily accessible funds to this vibrant and explosive sector with a high potential to be the major backbone for Nigeria's economic development and growth. So what we're saying basically is that, look, government has come to the realization that if it is to expand this area, then of course it should be able to fill that missing gap somewhere. And that missing gap is that there is little access to funds. It is hard for SMEs to find funds. So the AGSMEIS loan scheme is government's own response to response and solution to the issue of access to funds. Okay, so AGSMEIS loan scheme wants to provide affordable and easily accessible funds to the SME sector and agricultural sector, because where funds are available for these two sectors, then it will become the major backbone for Nigeria's being for the major developed economies. That is what the AGSMEIS loan scheme is all about. Okay, government's response, government solution to the issue of lack of access to funds. Okay. If it's able to provide those funds, aspects of this loan scheme, if government is able to make these funds easily available, then of course the potential, the high potential of these two areas will be exploited, and then of course it will also become for Nigeria its own economic major backbone for its own economic growth and development. All right, so that is about the AGSMEIS loan scheme. All right, so we have come to the first end of the first section of this paper. That's defining AGSMEIS, its component, its objective, what it sets out to do. Before we continue with the next section, which is entrepreneurship, I'll open the floor so that if members have any question, they can ask their questions, and then we'll answer them before we proceed with the rest of the paper. So we're opening the floor now, please. Welcome questions, and then we'll continue from there. Thank you.
What is the meaning of can I know of AGSMEIS?
Okay, Sati Milton, you raise your hand. You can. Sorry, who is on the line, please? Is it Chrissy Paul? Who is asking questions? Is it Mrs. Paul, Mrs. Paul, or Mrs. Mohammed? Ask your question, please. Unmute your mic and ask your question. Sati Milton, go ahead and ask.
Okay, morning, sir.
Morning, Sati. How are you today?
Thank you, sir.
Good.
I'd like to commend you for a wonderful presentation, sir.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Mine is more like contribution. Anyway, let me, okay, a question, maybe slash.
Go ahead and contribute and then ask that question. Welcome
okay,
all
sir.
that. Yeah.
Yes, sir. The issue of sustainability, sir.
Yeah.
The government policy on AGSMEIS is a very fantastic one, sir. My own fear is the sustainability, sir. After this administration, with this scheme or with this program continues, sir.
All right, good. You want me to answer that one now, or you want to ask a second one?
Yeah.
Okay, let me answer this one. Okay. Okay, let me answer this one, then you can ask the next one, okay? The NISA Microfinance Bank, like I said, it's not owned by the government. Oh. It's a private sector, it's a private sector owned bank. It's owned by the Committee of Bankers with 50% shares, and then CBN with 40% shares, and NIPOS with 10% shares in the form of providing offices. So it's a profit-oriented banking institution, okay? But with the target of making available to Nigerians easily accessible funds. So whether this government is there or not, the Committee of Bankers will want to continue to earn money from there, okay? Because if they give you this loan, for example, at least they will be getting their 5% interest rate. For next year, it's likely to be 9% because it actually started as 9%. But because of the COVID situation, that's why they brought it down to 5%. So by next year, it's likely to go back to 9%. So there is that profit at the end of it. Okay, they definitely will not want to operate at a loss. Okay, they will not provide this money and they not want to recover it. Even if it's collateral free, there is your BVN. Your BVN serves as your collateral. So with that, they'll be able to recover and recoup their money. So in terms of sustainability, it has been structured in such a way that it should be able to leave this administration and subsequent ones going down the line because it's a private business. Okay.
Oh, thank you, sir.
All right. Yeah. You wanted to make a second, ask a second question.
No, it's actually a contribution, sir. You know, this issue of accessibility to loans has always been the major problem of agribusiness and SMEs. Yes, sir. So with this program in place, it's a veritable tool for empowering the agricultural sector and the SMEs.
Yeah.
So in fact, it's a very commendable program, sir.
Initiative definitely is really, and our prayer is that to be sustainable, and then those of us who are players in the field will continue to encourage people to take advantage of it because we are sure it's going to be self-sustaining going forward. And then, of course, encourage those who are able to access these funds to be able to utilize it effectively and then be able to pay back so that others will also benefit down the line. That's the only way we'll be able to build on that.
Okay, that's good, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you welcome. Yeah, Chrissy Paul, you had a question. You can unmute and ask your question, please. Chrissy Paul, Jerome Okwe, Temi Tokwe, and then Mrs. Mohammed. Let's have contributions, and or you can go to the chat box and ask your questions in the chat box.
Sorry, let me just say something.
Yeah, okay.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello.
Go ahead. I can hear you.
Forgive me, I just wanted to excuse myself for making a comment right now, but I will do shortly. I'm following, please.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Somebody was also trying to ask a question. Is it Chrissy Paul or Mrs. Mohammed? All right. If there are no more questions, then we'll go back to our slide and continue with the paper. If you have any questions, feel free to go to the chat box and then ask your question. We'll always attend to it. Right, so the second section now, we're looking at the second section, which is on entrepreneurship. What is entrepreneurship? Can somebody quickly go to the chat box and then help us define what entrepreneurship is all about? What is entrepreneurship? Okay, let's try and make it as interactive as possible, not just on asking us one-on-one, but also on the chat box. I'm waiting for a response from any volunteer. What's entrepreneurship? What is entrepreneurship? Can you give us a one-line answer to that? Then we'll proceed. All right, while we're waiting for that, you're all entrepreneurs for all I know. Okay, you all have the idea of starting a business, creating a business, running a business, and of course, ready to take the risk to run those business, and then of course, the bottom line being able to make profit, because as you want to start any business, you are looking at the profit motive. Okay, all right. So whatever it is that you are trying to do, whatever line of business or enterprise you are trying to start, okay? That basically is entrepreneurship, okay? Starting something with the aim, with the purpose of earning a profit, the purpose of earning a living out of it. And then of course there are risks that come with it, and you are willing and ready to take those risks. That is what entrepreneurship is all about, okay? Here, let's look at the formal definitions that we have here. Entrepreneurship is the process of starting and running a business enterprise. Okay, so all of us on this program, the moment that we have started the thought about starting and running a business enterprise, that is entrepreneurship, okay? It involves investing capital in resources like people, in development of products and services to create viable commercial enterprises. Okay, we've defined labor. Each time we're asked to define labor, we say labor is about capital and people and resources and all of that. Okay, so capital, of course, is what you are looking at, money. Okay, the moment you take your money, okay, and then you invest it in people, that's resources. Human capital, these are resources. Okay, you take capital, fiscal capital, and invest in human resources, people, in order to develop products, in order to develop services, okay, to which you also provide to other people in the form of an enterprise. That is entrepreneurship, okay? It is the capacity and willingness to develop, to organize, and manage a business venture along with any of its risks in order to make a profit, right? So I mentioned this earlier, okay? At the tail end of every business, any enterprise that you want to go into, there is a profit motive, okay? And then of course there are risks involved in it, okay? But the moment you are willing to invest your capital, invest your money in people, okay? In order to be able to organize them, to manage them, to be able to make profit and all of the risks along the line, that is entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship is about starting a business with a profit motive and then with a willingness to take the risks that come with it. That is what entrepreneurship is all about. So all of you on this program today, you have some want to go into crop farming, some want to go into poultry, some want to go into dressmaking and all of that. With what purpose, with what intent? To make money. But you know that in going into this line of business, there are risks along the line, but you are ready to take those risks to be able to set up this enterprise, to be able to make this money. That is what entrepreneurship is all about, okay? There is a target objective, making profit, but then there are also things that you have to go into along the line to be able to make that profit. And those things involve risk taking. That is what entrepreneurship is all about, okay? So the most obvious example of entrepreneurship is starting up new businesses. Anytime you're starting a new business, you are already involved in entrepreneurship. All of you on this program this morning are involved in entrepreneurship, one form of entrepreneurship or the other, okay? Entrepreneurial spirit is characterized by innovation and risk-taking, and it is an essential part of a nation's ability to succeed in an ever-changing and increasingly competitive global market. What we're saying here basically is that the world is a global market. And across the world, nations, citizens of nations are competing for a pie, for a share of this global market. The competition that we are seeing today in the world between China and the US is all about taking a share, having a share of this global international market. The competition you see in Africa today between Nigeria and South Africa and all of that is also about taking a share of the Nigerian, the global market. Okay, everybody is trying to carve a little pie for himself, in the international market. And all of it is driven by the innovation of the citizens of these countries. Okay. So we're talking today, for example, about the competition between the iPhone smartphones, and then the Samsung, that's South Korean products, okay? And then of course, we're talking about Huawei. Huawei also is having a serious niche for itself in the smartphone market, okay, in the electronic market, okay? All these are competitions among various individuals and corporations, companies of different countries. but they are all in the struggle to be able to carve a marketplace for themselves. If you come to Africa today, you have the MTN trying to dominate the African market. You have Nigeria's Glo also pushing and making sure that it has its own share in the international, in the African market. Okay, who dominates? Okay, we have South African companies, despite the fact that we succeeded in virtually liberating South Africa. But today, South Africans have virtually come back to take over our Nigerian market, which should be the reversal. Okay, so this is all driven by the entrepreneurial spirit. It is about innovation. It is about risk-taking by individuals of the various countries, but protected, as it were, by the policies of these countries, okay, to protect their citizens to be able to do businesses across the world, protecting their interests. That's why today when you hear that American interests in all over the world, it is not about America being there in presence, but because of their citizens who are doing businesses in these areas, who are bringing in the resources to keep America as the largest, as the world's topmost economy. That's the American interest they are talking about. That is why they are ready to go to war. That is why they are ready to protect their businessmen doing businesses across the world. That is what the entrepreneurship spirit does for you, okay? It is characterized by innovation and by risk-taking, okay? Nigeria today, for example, Dangote, for example, is all over 11 countries in Africa today with cement companies, okay? So Nigeria, of course, has to be able to be there to provide its support for these Nigerians who are doing businesses across the continent, to be able to make sure that they are able to succeed in their businesses, because the resources, the income coming is also part of what contributes to Nigeria's presence in the international business competitive world today, okay? So the world is a global market, and the citizens of various countries in the world are there fighting to grab a share, a pie of those markets in terms of innovation, in terms of risk-taking. And that basically is what the entrepreneurship spirit is all about, okay? That is what it's all about. Competition, risk-taking, the global market, who takes a share of it. China is carving out almost the whole of Africa for itself today. Then suddenly today we now hear of the conference between India and Africa, Russia and Africa, the EU countries and Africa, because of course they've seen that China also has its own relationship with Africa today. They come into Africa and is building up their infrastructure, which have been, virtually been done and dilapidated. You will see them building rail lines, airports, and all of those things. And then, of course, the world is taking notice, okay, while China is creeping in gradually and providing all of those services to African countries. And then the competition amongst them is becoming very, very rife, because they say, look, if we allow China to do this, it's going to take over those previous colonies that we have let go, but China is coming back to recolonize them through some other means today, okay? And then, of course, the Africans themselves are beginning to say, look, we need to now begin to stand on our own, to fight for our own cause, to be able to see how we'll be self-sustaining. And that is why you are seeing the various economic zones trying to take a footing across Africa today. The SADC, the ECOWAS market, and then the Central African market, also all of them struggling to make sure that they protect their own economic activities, economic zones. That basically is what drives the entrepreneurial spirit, is what drives nations today, right? So who is an entrepreneur? Because all of you on this program today who want to access the AGSMEIS loan scheme are all entrepreneurs. Entrepreneur is a person who takes the risk of investing his money, his time, passion in development of a business or several business enterprises. That is basically what an entrepreneur is all about, okay? We've talked about somebody who is willing to invest of his So, sorry for the break again in this presentation. So, an entrepreneur is a person who takes the risk of investing his money, his time, passion in the development of a business or several business enterprises. All of you on this program, as I said, have some form of enterprise at the back of your mind. And then, of course, you are willing to take the risk of investing your money. You are willing to take the risk of taking a loan, the AGSMEIS loan, okay? Take the AGSMEIS loan to be able to invest in that business, okay? That is an entrepreneur in the making, okay? You have the passion, okay, to develop maybe a large poultry farm, to start a rice processing business or a crop farm. That is something that you have at the back of your mind to do. And of course, you are willing to take the risk of investing your money, take the loan, invest it in that line of business. That is what entrepreneurship, that's who an entrepreneur is. Anybody who is willing to take the risk of investing his money, his time and passion to develop any type of business enterprise whatsoever is an entrepreneur, okay? All right, who is an entrepreneur? This is another definition that resonates very well with me also. An entrepreneur is someone who jumps off a cliff and builds a plane on the way down, literally, okay? That's any risks that you are already willing to take, any risk that you are willing to take. Jumping off a cliff, we all know what a cliff is. A cliff is a very high mountainous area with a ravine and with maybe flowing water underneath. Anybody that is willing to jump off that kind of a cliff because of an idea, because of something that he has a passion for, and at the end of it, by the time he comes down, he lands at the bottom of this cliff, he has come up with that objective. He has built a plane. That is an entrepreneur. So entrepreneurship, as it's defined here, is someone who is willing to take a jump, who is ready to take a risk. Okay, it's ready to take a risk. For what essence? For what purpose? To achieve a goal. In this instance, to build a plane on his way down. Okay, that is the extreme definition of an entrepreneur. But that is what it is basically. Anyone who is willing to take a risk and then to achieve a goal at the end of the day. That is an entrepreneur. Okay, right. So let's look at the people who for me represent the true spirit of the entrepreneur as defined by Reid Hoffman. Okay, from Reid Hoffman's definition, the Wright brothers, maybe he had the Wright brothers at the back of his mind when he was defining an entrepreneur as someone who jumps off a cliff and builds a plane on the way down. Because basically that's what the Wright brothers did. I'm sure you are familiar with the Wright brothers. You can see the contraption they are sitting in. That is the first plane, the first aeroplane as we know it today, okay? The Wright brothers had the conception, the idea that, look, we can be able to build a plane that can take people across the seas, that can move people from one point to the other in the air. When they started, they came up with that idea, people laughed at them, that there's no way you can have any major equipment with heavy metallic body that can fly in the air. And they went out to prove that it is possible. And you can see the contraption they had. And they were able to fly this contraption, crash it severally, but at the end of it, they came up with a plane. Okay, so literally jumping off the cliff, and then at the bottom, they came up with a plane. And today, because of the Wright brothers, we are better off today. Today we have jumbo jets flying all over the world, okay, crisscrossing the world, flying thousands of kilometers, thousands of miles, kilometers within hours. Today, you're able to travel from Nigeria to the UK within 6 hours. You're able to go to the US in 8 hours. You're able to go all the way to Hong Kong within 24 hours or thereabout. Flying in one contraption today on account of the vision and then, of course, the foresight of the Wright brothers. That is who an entrepreneur is. Okay. Of course, on our screen again, for me, this is a modern day entrepreneur, modern day Wright brothers. I don't know how many of you know this gentleman. His name is Elon Musk. I'm sure you've heard of Elon Musk before. Elon Musk is a South African, American today. His father is still alive and in South Africa, okay, but he has relocated to the US where he's doing a whole lot of wonderful things. He is the founder and owner of, chief executive owner of SpaceX. SpaceX is an aeronautic engineering company, a spacecraft company. that builds aviation engines, aviation planes, okay, which takes people to the International Space Center to orbit. His ultimate vision is to be able to take people to the Mars, okay, to land people in Mars, to colonize Mars. Unfortunately for him, just about sometime last week, the first Mars capsule which he built could not go very far into orbit. But already he has succeeded in taking 2 different sets of people to the International Space Center. The last one was just sometime last month, early this month or last month, where he took 4 astronauts down who are presently in the International Space Center. Before then, about 6 months ago, another 4 sets of astronauts were in the International Space Center from the SpaceX project, and they lived there for about 6 months before coming back to Earth successfully. The current group are also there now. This is about their 2nd or 3rd week in the International Space Center. In fact, the very first Black gentleman to fly in that to fly as an astronaut is presently also in the International Space Center on account of Elon Musk vision. Okay, so that is for me today the present day Wright brothers. Apart from this, Elon Musk also is the founder and owner of Tesla. I'm sure you've heard about Tesla. Tesla is the electric car company. You know, when I talked about oil, the oil and then and the strategies across the world today because of its impact on climate change, and then of course the carbon emission and the whole case of pollution, and then of course the drive towards reducing carbon emission into space, okay, reducing the load of carbon monoxide in the space, and then of course the ozone layer depletion, and then the entire concept of the climate change issues. Okay, before the coronavirus, if you go to places like China and India, you see people already wearing masks, okay, because of the pollution, the monumental pollution in those countries, as a result of vehicles emitting carbon monoxide into space because of the industrial bases in those countries. So the next drive is how to reduce carbon emission. And one of the ways is doing away with petroleum engines. So Tesla came up with the idea of electric cars, okay? And the hope, the drive, the aspiration of most auto companies is that by 2050, most of the vehicles in the world will be driven on electricity. In fact, by 2030, BMW has said that 80% of its vehicles will be driven on electricity. Okay, and then of course Tesla today is one of the most popular cars in China today because of their drive in reducing carbon emission and reducing the use of petroleum products in the vehicles. So when we talk about Nigeria's oil, this is the direction that we are going. And that is one of the more reasons why there is the need for diversification of the economy, diversification of the Nigerian economy away from oil. Even in Nigeria today, just about last week or so, the president commissioned gas plants that will now be Nigerian cars will be using for purposes of transportation. Okay, these are also part of the vision of moving away from oil, moving away from the use of petroleum vehicles in the direction of reduction of the carbon emission in outer space, and then of course the whole idea of climate change. So these are people who are driving the world today with new initiatives, and then of course changing the narratives. So the earlier we also learn about these initiatives and see what we can do towards contributing to it, the better for all of us, and the better we begin to take the necessary actions that we need to move away, diversify our economy, and then follow the trend that is happening in the world today, especially as we respect to climate change. An entrepreneur is any individual who starts a business, a new business venture, or a company. He arranges the deals and takes the risk in order to make profit or create social change. So that's basically what we've been saying all along. The only new addition here is the social change component. Okay, when in the area of social change component, when we look at what people like Zuckerberg are doing with the Facebook, Instagram, and of course all of these social networking enterprises across the world, these are creating social change. The recent EndSARS protests that we had in this country All of these things were facilitated as a function of the networking companies that have taken virtually the entire world. People are able to communicate, are able to liaise, are able to be in touch and share ideas and move even without having to meet face to face, to take decisions, take actions that make a whole lot of changes in the world today. That is what entrepreneurs are doing in the world today. Okay, so what does an entrepreneur do? What does an entrepreneur do? As an entrepreneur, what do you do? An entrepreneur identifies a need that no existing business addresses and determines a solution for that need. Simple. Okay? You are all entrepreneurs today are so defined. And then, of course, whatever line of business you want to go into, you must have noticed that, look, within your community, within your environment, this is an area of need. And there's nobody who is trying to satisfy that need. And then you come up with an idea to fill that gap, to fill that vacuum. That is an entrepreneur. That's what an entrepreneur does. Okay. Entrepreneurial activities include developing and launching new businesses and marketing them, often with the end of selling the business to turn a profit. Okay, so let's give an example. For example, let's give an example. If you come to a community and you find that people within that community, are living as have as their main source of water, for example, a stream. Okay, a stream. That is where they get their water for drinking. That's where they get their water for washing. That's where they get their water for bathing. Okay, that is where they get their water for cooking. And then, of course, you go to that same stream, you find animals also drinking and doing all manners of things in the place. Okay, you can imagine the impact of such a stream on the lives of the people, the likely disease prevalence, the likely health challenges that could arise as a result of that singular source of water. And then by the time you look at it and you come into that environment and say, why? Why is this happening in this area? And then you decide to sink a borehole, okay, to provide potable drinking water for people in that community, or to develop such a water company or a bottled water company. That is identifying a need that no business is addressing or finding a solution for. But you have come, identified this problem, that this community needs better source of drinking water, and you decide to sink a borehole, okay, to either provide water for the generality of the community in terms of maybe providing tap heads where they can come and fetch their water for little money, or decide to set up a sachet water company or a bottled water company. That is providing a solution. That is what an entrepreneur does. Okay, that is entrepreneurship. Okay, if in your own environment, for example, you choose to go into bakery because you come to a community and you find that, look, people within this community, before they are able to access of bread and things like that, have to travel for about 1 kilometer or thereabout of several hours before they're able to do that. And then you decide to set up a bakery within that community. That is entrepreneurship, providing a means of livelihood, providing bread for people within that community, instead of having them travel long hours to be able to bring those that product to the people within that community. That is entrepreneurship. Okay, an entrepreneur who regularly launches new businesses, sells them, and starts a new business is a serial entrepreneur. Additionally, although the term entrepreneur is often associated with startups and small businesses, any founder of a successful household business then began as an entrepreneur, just like people like Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates. All these started as entrepreneurs, but today they are the founders of major successful enterprises. Okay, so here we are on the examples of successful entrepreneurs. I'm just talking about Steve Jobs. He's a late tech leader who started the Apple computer in the garage with his friend Steve Wozniak and grew it to be the dominant tablet, small smartphone and computer company that it is today. I'd already talked about this earlier. I told you how Steve Jobs and his friend Steve Wozniak started the Apple computer from the garage of their parents' home. Okay, and today, Apple is known more as Apple than Apple Computer or Apple Corporation. It is simply the Apple, which is a brand, a world-renowned brand that is into computers, smartphones, and tablets. Okay, today it is a $2 trillion company, starting the way it did in the early 70s till today. Okay, we also have Microsoft, Bill Gates. Okay, Bill Gates is another successful entrepreneur. He is the founder and creator of Microsoft. Today is one of the world's richest persons. Okay, and of course, today he has moved away from the IT world into other areas like vaccine production. It's one of those at the forefront of the creation of vaccine for the COVID-19 pandemic. Nigeria just moved away from one of the polio-infected countries to polio-free. All of that is also a function of Bill Gates and his team who worked so hard on the vaccination for polio. And then, of course, he's also into researching for vaccine for malaria and a host of other things. Then, of course, I've spoken of Elon Musk already as the founder of SpaceX, an aerospace rocket manufacturing company. And then, of course, Tesla, the electric car, the car for the future, the car that's built as with the challenge of climate change in mind. Okay, so these are the pictures of some of our successful entrepreneurs: Steve Jobs, and then Bill Gates. Then, of course, Mark Zuckerberg, the young American, just about 33. He's a co-founder and owner of Facebook. He saw the need for interpersonal communication among people, and then developed the social networking service from his Harvard University dormitory in 2004. 5 years after, this communication means of networking, which was prevalent within the Harvard University system, had spread to about 500 million users. That's by 2009. Today, they have over 2 billion users, and it's a $6 billion revenue company today. That is what Mark Zuckerberg has been able to do within a very, very short lifespan. Okay, here are examples of Nigeria's own successful entrepreneurs. We have Tony Elumelu, Denuga, Dangote, Tedola, Woshika. These are some of Nigeria's best known entrepreneurs. Dangote, of course, we know is Africa's richest person with major vast interest in cement, sugar, oil, and gas, and a host of other businesses. Tony Elumelu made a fortune in banking. Is building and empowering entrepreneurs across Africa. On a year-to-year basis, Tony Elumelu's foundation is able to bring so many young African entrepreneurs whom he's able to support and provide seed money ranging from about $5,000 to about $20,000, monies which they use in starting their own entrepreneurial businesses. The hope is that in the next decade or so, those who have come through this Tony Elumelu Foundation and whom he has been able to support will be tomorrow's entrepreneurs in Africa, driving Africa's economy. That is the hope, that is the aspiration, and that is a very, very commendable initiative by Tony Elumelu, who not only wants to also build the tribe of entrepreneurs, but of course securing the future of Africa, because entrepreneurship is what drives the economy of the world. I've told you about the risk, the innovation, the innovativeness and innovation of people across the world, which is being supported and buttressed, as it were, by their governments as they all seek a pie of the global international market. Another successful Nigerian business entrepreneur is on our screen. I don't know how many of you recognize this gentleman, but he is also making a whole lot of inroads today. His name is Mr. Nnamdi Ezigbo. Okay, many might not have heard his name, but if you have heard about Techno and Infinix phone brands, then of course that is the person behind those brands today. Okay, Tony Ezigbo is the founder and CEO of Slot Nigeria Limited, and then the co-founder of Techno and Infinix phone brands. This is one of the fastest selling mobile phones in Nigeria today. Okay, Ezigbo's story is typical of Nigeria, all Nigerians, most young Nigerians. Okay, when he completed his NYC in '76, like most young Nigerians, he went out looking for a white-collar job, but couldn't find any. Okay, so what did he end up with? He decided to join a computer repair shop as an apprentice. Okay, and when he finished, he set up his own shop, you know, and then of course started selling computers and eventually sold cell phones also. In the course of doing that, okay, he found so many young Nigerians coming into his shop with several handsets. And then he thought about it and said, look, instead of people carrying so many handsets around them, why don't we create a phone that has dual SIMs? That's how the idea came up. And then he approached Nokia, the Nokia company. Nokia, of course, you know, is a smartphone company. And they turned the idea down. They said, no, we would rather produce as many phones as possible so that the more people buy, the more money we're able to make, which makes some sense. Okay, but Ezigbo was not deterred. He moved on and met a young Chinese guy who had just left his work with a cell phone company, and then shared the idea with him, and the guy bought into it, and that's how Techno cell phone was created with dual SIMs. Okay, and then of course in no time they added the Infinix brand also to the Techno. Today, this is the fastest mobile phone selling mobile phone in the country that is able to fill in a gap. Okay, meeting the needs of those who do not have enough money to be able to buy the Samsung, the iPhones, but then of course selling to those middle level kind of people, and then of course having the phone do the same kind of business, accessing the internet and doing all of the things that you are able to do with the iPhones and then the Samsungs. And of course in Nigeria today, that is one of the main phones that most young Nigerians use across the country today. Right. So types of entrepreneurship. Let's look at these various types of entrepreneurship. First, we have the builder, the innovator, the specialist, the opportunist. The builder believes in building empire and infrastructure. The innovator starts a business because of his passion for innovation. The specialist, of course, that's the expert who packages specialists and experts, brings a lot of expertise into his businesses. And then opportunities, sees the existing gap and provides a business to service that gap. I just gave you an example of one. Okay, so this type of entrepreneurship actually is derived from a book by Joe Abraham. He called it the entrepreneurial DNA. Okay, he identified that all entrepreneurs are not wired the same way, but that they fall into 4 distinct categories. Okay, Abraham recognized that, like the human being, there are no 2 individuals that have the same DNA. The DNA, of course, is our genetic marker that differentiates one individual from the next. Okay, same also with the entrepreneurs. There are some that are driven by different DNAs, different things, genetic type drives them. Okay, so he identified 4 distinct types. The first is a builder. This believes in building empires and infrastructure. It believes in building scalable businesses and very fast at that. People like this actually, builders are typified by people from South Korea who build these massive industries and infrastructure across the world. Okay, today when we talk about the Samsung is not just about the smartphone. Samsung is a whole household company involved in not just the smartphone and tablets, but in household items, even in the building of massive ships. Okay, the ships, the cruiser ships, the tankers, and all of that. That is the kind of things that people in South Korea are involved with. Most of the large state companies you find in the world, across the world today, are coming in from South Korea. That is an aspiration for people in those countries. Okay, the opportunities. This one sees an existing gap, okay, and provide a business to fill that gap. I just gave a typical example of somebody who comes to an environment and then sees that the people in that environment do not have access to potable drinking water. And what does he do? He quickly goes in, fills the gap by providing a borehole for that community. That is a typical opportunist. somebody like Richard Branson, I'm sure you've heard of Richard Branson before. He's the founder and owner of Virgin Islands, okay? Virgin Islands, Virgin Red Line, Virgin Music. Remember also Virgin Nigeria, okay? Richard Branson is sort of a person that when he comes to an environment, he's able to quickly identify an existing gap and then does everything to make sure he fills it. Okay, he came to Nigeria, saw the number of Nigerians traveling on a day-to-day basis using the BA, the Emirates, the Qatar, and all of that, the Lufthansa and all of those airlines, and decided, how come Nigeria does not have its own airline? Okay, and then decided to partner with Nigeria to create the Virgin Nigeria. Of course, the experience did not last because of our typical Nigerian attitude towards running public institutions. Okay, the specialists, this packages skill and expertise into viable businesses. The specialist is a very analytical mind, an expert who is averse to risk-taking. People like Bill Gates fit into this. I've told you that Bill Gates, though he started as an IT, today he has moved into medicine. When you find Bill Gates discussing medicines and vaccines today, you would have thought maybe he is a medical person, but he's not. But that is what his expert mind, analytical mind pushes him to do. The innovator. This one starts a business because of his passion for innovation, okay? Innovators do something they love. When the opportunity comes, they'll tell you their entire life depends on it. They'll do it not for the money, but because of its impact on humanity. People like Mark Zuckerberg fall into this group also. So these are the 4 types of entrepreneurs that Joe Abraham identified. But why we would like to discuss this in this course is that we like to ask the question, as an entrepreneur, okay, what is it that works for you? Have you identified your own DNA? Are you a builder? Are you an innovator, a specialist on opportunities? Okay, who are you? What kind of entrepreneur are you? So we want you to look inward, introspect, and look at yourself and decide, what is it that drives me? What DNA drives me? Okay, is it innovation? Is it specialist? Is it opportunities? You know, if you are able to identify the DNA that drives you, that is when you'll be able to know the kind of business you want to go into and start, okay, the strategy you want to adopt, the team that you want to put together around you, okay? Because what works for one entrepreneur might not necessarily work for you. You need to be able to identify your own, what drives you, what pushes you, to be able to make that difference, okay? So that's the advice we like to give. That is why we discuss the types of entrepreneurship in this program, okay? Types of businesses for consideration. All right, before we go into this, I want to also take a quick break here now, and then let's look at what we have discussed with respect to entrepreneurship, so that we'll be able to, in case there are any questions we want to ask, any contributions we want to make, let's make that contribution now. Okay, right. So the floor is open. If you have any comments, any contribution, please feel free. And then so that I'm not the only one who is doing all the talking, but we also are able to contribute so that we're able to have some interaction. I've just checked the chat box. I can't find any comments in the chat box. No new development. All right, so any comments? Jide Akinshola, you have a comment, sir?
Not at this time.
All right, Jide, thanks.
Yes, yes,
all
thank
right.
you.
All right. Yeah, Sati, you have a comment,
Yes,
sir? Yes.
Thank you for another round of a wonderful presentation, too, sir.
It's a training.
Thank you.
Training, rather. Okay.
Thank you, Sati. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Experts, have said that, if you innovate and does not transform it, to cater for a need, just like you've said, sir, then your innovation is not viable. That is, a lot of people have innovated things that could not be transformed into, goods and services. So innovation actually has to be transformed.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm making a contribution, sir. One of the characteristics of an entrepreneur is, innovation, risk taking, and development. So all these things have to be transformed to solve a need.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just innovate and you are not able to transform it into a need, in an observed need, then it doesn't solve, or it doesn't serve any needs of humanity. So
That's
that
right.
one is because a number of people, just like I said, sir, a number of people have innovated so many things that are just lying dormant, and it doesn't address a particular need. So just like you said, sir, we should always look for a need and then see how we can, leverage on, other factors to solve that need.
That's right.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thank you very much. I appreciate Sati. The good thing about when we have this lecture every time, for me, really is I'm able to learn quite a lot from contributions from my participants. Because there's no end to learning, and you keep opening up the horizon for people all the time. That basically really is a reality, especially in our country, Nigeria, where the kind of symbiotic relationship we expect between our universities, research institutes, and the market is basically not there. So you go there, and then on the shelves, you find that all of these things that we need within the society have been addressed, have been researched, solutions have been found. But then we don't have that whole idea of taking it beyond those research centers to the marketplace to be able to satisfy the needs of our people and our communities. So what essence have we been able to achieve? And that is what we continue to keep preaching on and on. But then the hope with this program is that, look, this is in a practical sense, because you are trying to assess a facility now, and you're not going to simply assess that facility and then innovate or create something that you simply want to sit on. Because if you sit on it, of course, you're not going to benefit. You have a profit motive at the end of it. So you will be forced, as it were, to take it out into the market and try to see how you implement and how you are able to build on it. So that's a very, very good thing that I think this program, this project is going to be able to contribute to our national life along the line, really. And I hope as we're all listening to this contribution, we'll take it as a challenge, okay? We'll take it as a challenge that, yes, we're assessing a loan facility, but for a purpose, because we want to go beyond where we are now to become the kind of business owners that these examples that we have given started from. And then they have remained, as it were, on that same course. Like I said, entrepreneurship is a lifelong project. It's not a sprint, okay? But it's a lifelong project down the line that you want to live and bequeath and live for others to build on. So let's approach this scheme with that kind of same mental position that, yes, we are starting something to build for the future. I think it's going to help us a lot going forward. Thank you very much. Any other comments? Do you have any other comments? All right, so let's continue with the last section of this paper, so that we'll round up. I know you guys are all busy people, shouldn't keep you for too long, but we'll just, I think we've covered the half of it now, so we'll just try and round up the order quickly. Right. So types of businesses for consideration. Of course, I know most of you have I know most of you already have your idea of the kind of business you want to go into, and that's why you're here already. But then we'll list out the other businesses for consideration. So just in case. All right, sorry, didn't realize I was still muted. Sorry, muted. So we'll look at the other businesses that are available, and let's see if maybe if you see some of the other businesses, you want to change your mind about that line of the business which you already have in mind, or this will reinforce your need to go into that business. Okay. Right. Types of businesses for consideration. Right. So these are the various types of businesses that this scheme supports. Okay. First here we have fashion. Okay. We know the fashion industry in Nigeria today. We know all of the wonderful things that Nigerian fashion designers, dressmakers are into. Okay, so that's an area that you might want to consider. But for this COVID-19 pandemic, we know that on a year-to-year, week-to-week basis, rather, in Nigeria, the fashion industry is something else because of the weddings, all of the activities, ceremonies, the chieftaincies, and all of those things happening on day-to-day basis, week-to-week basis in Nigeria. And of course, the fashion sense is all over the place. And then, of course, we see what many of our fashion people are doing in the international market today also. Farming, of course, we've seen how important the agribusiness area is for government and its consideration. Small scale manufacturing, we have catering, as hospitality, we have buying and selling. Buying and selling, of course, is not supported directly by this scheme, but where buying and selling, you buy and then add value to whatever it is that you are buying. That concept will be supported. Let's say you go to buy materials, go to Aba and buy material, Aba, Kano and buy materials and bring to Abuja, and you just come to sell, that will not be supported. But when you go to Aba, Kano and buy materials and then you come and turn them to dresses, okay, fashion dresses, that is adding value. That is bringing other people to create new things. That is that line of business will be supported. So in case you want to go into buying and selling, even if it's like buying grains and selling, that might not directly be supported. But if you are going to buy grains and add value in the sense of packaging, okay, in the sense of packaging, branding and things like that, that will be supported, okay? If you just want to just go and buy rice and then just come and sell, might not be supported. But if you are going to buy the paddy rice and then process, that will be supported. So we need to have that at the back of our mind. Event management, that's another very lucrative area today. Along that also falls under the hospitality, eateries and restaurants and snack bar sector. Animal husbandry, of course, animal keeping, cows, sheep, and goats, and things like that. We all know that we're trying to reduce the incidence of farmer-herder clashes that we have in this country. That is becoming a source of major crisis that we have in this country today, with cattle rustlers, people invading poultries and things like that. So the more we are able to get people from pasteurizing around the whole place and destroying farms, the better for us. So animal husbandry is also well supported. Photography, publishing, dry cleaning, cosmetic, beauty, and makeup industry, health services. So these are the various type of businesses that you can all look at and for consideration. Then, of course, there's the vocational skills also sector. Yeah, we're looking at electricians, plumbing, carpentry, masonry, curb making, block making, and all of this. Why we'd like to emphasize this and try to see if we can encourage our members, our clients who can take this into consideration is that the construction industry in Nigeria is a very, very vast industry. If you are in a place like Abuja, for example, the FCT is a city that will be under construction for the next 50 years or thereabout. But when you go to most of the construction sites we have in the country, in the city, we find that most of the people in the vocational skills area are not Nigerians. Well, we find so many of our Nigerian chaps roaming the streets, pushing wheelbarrows, doing menial jobs here and there. But when we go to the construction industry, most of those people with vocational skills are coming from the west coast of Nigeria. People from the Benin Republic, Togo, Ghana, and places like that. And then you ask the question, what is wrong with our own Nigerian people? Why are our citizens just roaming the streets when there's a very vast industry where they can fit into? Okay, so we try to see if we can encourage people to set up vocational skills acquisition institutions where these kind of vocational skills can be impacted, okay, because we really have a dearth of such available skills in the country today, right? So these are the various businesses and then the various vocational skills which members can consider when going into business. So having looked at the business, now we want to look at things that you need to consider before going into business. What are those things you want to consider before going into any of those businesses that we have looked into? Do you simply want to go into a line of business because Mr. A, you see Mr. A in that line of business and he seems to be doing very well in that business? So there are several things that we need to consider, and that's what we'll try to look at quickly here now. So is there a demand for that business? That is the first and foremost question you should ask. Okay, is there a demand for that kind of business in that community? Okay, the man with who came to the environment and found people drinking from the stream. Of course, by the time he looks around, asks questions around, he will find that, look, there is a need for potable drinking water within that community. But what kind of potable drinking water will be needed or will be required in that community? That's the next question that you need to ask. Okay, many businesses fail simply because the entrepreneur set up a business that sold products and services people don't need, or set up a business that produces a product and services that people want but cannot afford. So this could be explained by the example I just gave now. Okay, you come into environment and find that, look, people are in need of potable drinking water within this environment. Okay, they need it. But then you set up that line of business and you find that people cannot afford that kind of product. Okay, because the moment you decide to set up a portable drinking, portable water factory, and then you are selling sachet water, which they need to pay 10 naira per sachet water, or bottled water, which they need to pay 100 naira for, you find that where they need that product, they might not be able to afford it. But if you set up a portable drinking water, and then you set up a tap head with several tap heads, and then they are able to come and then fetch one bucket for 10 naira, you find that that product will move within that community. So instead of spending 10 naira for sachet water, 10 naira can give them a whole bucket of water. Then of course, you know, that will definitely make a difference with respect to that line of business within that environment. So first and foremost, is there a need for the business? Okay, you will need to ask the question, are there other people doing similar business, or are you bringing something new to the table? Okay, I did talk about the other example I gave is about a bakery, for example. You come to the environment and find that people within that community buy their bread about 2 or 3 kilometers away. Okay, or you come and then you find that there is already an existing bakery. Then of course, what are you like, if you decide to set up that same kind of bakery within the environment, what are you likely to do? You think you'll be able to succeed in that line of business? Or are you bringing something new? Is the bread you're going to produce going to be different from what is already on ground? Or are you going to bring something new? If you are starting a business in an area where the market is already saturated, the business might fail, as you may find that you'll be struggling just to keep up with the competition. That's the reality. So if you come here, there's already a bakery and you decide to start your own, then of course be ready if you run into a problem within that community. It is important that you do some research to find out areas where the competition is not properly serving the customers and then position your own business. So you need to ask the question, you need to do some research. Is this business that's already existing, is it meeting the various needs, the various areas of requirement for the people within that environment? If they are not, then you can be able to decide, like, okay, there is an area here which you think these people are not meeting that I can be able to fill. Then you go into that line of business. As an entrepreneur, you need to work hard to differentiate your product and bring something different to the market that no one else has ever seen. That is your USP, your unique selling point. What we're saying basically here is that, yes, if you come to an environment, there is already an existing line of business, but then you still insist on going into that same business, then of course, whatever it is you are bringing should be unique, should be different. You should have your own USP, their unique selling point. Here, I like to give the example of pig milk, okay? We all know pig milk very well. Pig milk is the most dominant milk product we have in the Nigerian market up to this day. But when pig milk had dominated the market for so long, suddenly 3 Crown milk came. We know that pig milk comes in a can, vaporized, okay? And then of course, at that time was selling for about 15 naira per can, okay? And that was the dominant kind of milk that we have in the market. And then 3 Crown came. 3 Crown came and then decided to enter the market. And people people, of course, generally say, what's this guy bringing in? What's new that 3 Crown was going to bring? What did 3 Crown do? 3 Crown decided to come in with sachet milk, powdered sachet milk. I was selling this powdered sachet milk for 10 naira per sachet. So what 3 Crown did was that to identify its own market and found that a sizable population of Nigerians could not afford peak milk. Okay, they didn't have the electricity to be able to preserve the milk if they open it until the next day. If you open the 50-can peak milk, you have to finish it that very day. But with the sachet milk and the powdered form, you are able to open it and then use it for as many people as possible. And then, of course, even fold it and keep it and use the next day. And it was just 10 naira. Okay, in no time, 3 Crown took over the market. Sachet milk was all over the place. Of course, in no time also, Peak Milk also developed its own sachet brand. So that was 3 Crown's unique selling point, unique selling proposition. It came in sachet form, it came as powder, and it was 10 naira, very cheap. So that is what you need to do under the circumstance. With the coming of the sachet milk, of course, we all know that powdered milk became very popular. Now we have cans of powdered milk, and then, of course, the various types of sachet powdered milk of different brands today. That was what 3 Crown did for the milk industry. Okay, so finding out something that makes your business stand out is critical for the survival of your enterprise. So have that at the back of your mind, your USP. What is your USP? Okay, your unique selling point that differentiates you from the market. Okay, other things to consider before going to business. Determine what needs are out there. What are the needs that are out there? What businesses exist to satisfy those needs? If there is no business currently satisfying those needs, it could mean that no one has thought about it. Okay, you come to the environment, you find that they are drinking water from the stream. Maybe nobody has thought about it, about digging a borehole. Okay, so maybe there could be not enough market to setting up that business, setting up of the business viable. Okay, so maybe you decide to dig up the borehole, and then you are now selling sachet water and bottled water. Of course, while there's the need for it, but it might not be viable because people are not able to afford it, okay? Or the cost of carrying out the business in that environment could be too expensive, okay? In order to dig the borehole, you might have run into a very hard, crusty rock on the lower level of the soil, and then you still went ahead to dig the borehole. But when you have done that, in order to be able to recoup your money, you have to sell at an expensive rate. And then, of course, suddenly you find that people are not buying. They're still going back to the stream to fetch their water. So that could be a problem, okay? So the cost of carrying out the business in that environment might be too expensive. So these are things that you have to look out for and be very careful about, okay? How do you determine what the needs are out there? How do you determine? One, you have to ask questions. You'll be surprised what you find out about people's needs when you ask the question. You have to administer simple questionnaires, which people can respond to. Just develop simple questionnaires and ask the various questions. Okay. Use social media to get feedback from prospective customers. Read journals and online sites that give free information, or look around and observe. Okay. We gave the example of Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. All they did in coming up with their businesses was to observe and to look around. Okay, so these are things that you need to be careful about, you need to do carefully, you need to research, you need to read, you need to ask questions. These are things that you need to do before starting a business. All right, main barriers to starting a business. Now we're going to the last stretches of the paper. Main barriers before starting a business. You know, when we started this paper, I did say that whatever line of business you want to go into, or whatever thing you want to do in life, there's nothing that is smooth sailing ever. There's every likelihood that you might run into some problems, some challenges, okay? But how you are able to overcome those initial challenges is what will make the world of a difference between success and failure, okay? So let's look at some of the main barriers to starting a small business. One, money. That's why we're here, okay? This is the most vital resource an entrepreneur needs. You want to start any business whatsoever, you need money. You need financing. Okay? Exactly how much do you need to start? And where are you going to get it from? These are the questions that you need to ask. Okay? So it's very important that we address that issue. Lack of knowledge. Many small businesses fail, not for lack of capital, but because the entrepreneurs have little knowledge of that business. Okay? So while some money might be a critical issue, for others it's not. They have all the money, but then they lack the knowledge. Okay? You just say Mr. A doing this line of business, and you say, ah, yes, that's where I'm going. But you know very little about that line of business, because every business has its own intricacy, has something that drives it. You need to have some basic information, knowledge about it. So you need to do some more homework, okay? When are the peak periods or low season for that business? Okay, some businesses are there, they have low peak seasons, they have high seasons. You might go and venture into a business that will enter at a very low season of that business. That could be a problem there. So you need to have an idea of the low seasons and then the high seasons. What sudden change in the environment can affect the business? Government policies, taxes. This is another challenge that we might have. We operate in an environment where government policies keep changing. And then, of course, it keeps impacting on the business. Not too long ago, the federal government banned the importation of maize. And so many people went into the banks, collected loans, massive loans, and started maize farms. But in no time, poultry farmers started complaining that there was little maize for the feeds for their birds. Okay? Meanwhile, those that collected money and then went into farming have not harvested, have not brought the maize products into the market. And then, of course, government went ahead and lifted the ban on importation of maize. So what happened? Those that collected, borrowed money to go into maize farming, found that, look, suddenly there was maize all over the place. The market was choked, okay? And then, of course, which means they were going to lose their money. The incentive for them to borrow money to go into this line of business suddenly has been frustrated with the lifting of the ban on importation of maize. And then, of course, the maize was flooded the market, and then the prices crashed, and then they lost setting. That is a major challenge there. So we have to be very, very careful about the line of business that we go into because of all these kind of sudden changes in government policy. Taxes. For so many years, our VAT was 5%. Suddenly it went to 7.5%. Stamp duty was 5%. Suddenly it went to 6%. Just about yesterday or day before yesterday, I was reading, one of the high courts in the country said it was illegal for banks to be collecting stamp duty charges, okay? Because the Stamp Duty Act did not provide for banks to be collecting stamp duty charges. So all of these kind of policy changes in the environment, these are things that as an entrepreneur, you have to have an idea about before you go into, okay? Will the business be able to generate cash immediately, or will you have to sell on credit? That's something you have to determine, because if you are going to go into any business that sells on credit, then of course you should be ready for the challenges that come with it. Because our finding is that most times when you sell things on credit, most people, the creditors hardly come to pay. Okay, so if you have to go into any line of business at all, make sure that it's something that sells on cash basis. Okay, are the products perishable? You have to determine that. Okay, if they are perishable products, you have preservations, you have things for preservation, facilities for preservation of those products until they are ready to go into the market. If you are going into tomato farming, are you going in within the season? Or if there is so much growth in the market, do you have a way of processing it to convert it to some other kind of products until such a time that you'll be able to bring it out into the market? How long does it take to produce your goods? And will it affect your ability to meet your customers' needs? All of these are things that you need to take into consideration. Another major barrier to starting a business is determination. Here we're advising that you have to develop the courage of a bulldog and maintain the determination that will enable you to smash through obstacles, as there will be many along the way. There will definitely be many obstacles along the way, okay? If the moment you start go into your business and then you run into the first hurdle, put your hands on your head and then give up, then of course you're not going to go very far. You have to have the courage of a bulldog, okay? You need determination. You need to keep your focus. When you fail, you need to pick yourself up. If you face rejection, you need to move on. okay? Change, look for new solutions, new strategies, okay, to make that business succeed. Because if at the first hurdle you face rejection, okay, or you fail in your first attempt, and then you simply fold your hands, then of course you know you're not going to go very far. And like we said, entrepreneurship is a long haul. It's a marathon. It's not a short race. So you should be ready for the long haul. Okay, right? Fear, our greatest enemy. One of the greatest challenges that we have is fear. It's one of the greatest barriers to people starting a business. They ask the question, what if I fail? What if I make a fool of myself? What if I'm rejected? And people say no. You know, unfortunately in Africa, for us Black men, for Africans, unfortunate to say, is we have not been able to overcome fear. We have not been able to defeat fear. That's why while the Western world, the European world has succeeded in overcoming fear, they've been able to take people to the moon, they are in the space center. We unfortunately have not been able to do the same, okay? We fear the unknown, we fear darkness, we are superstitious, okay? We're not ready to take the leap of faith. We're not ready to take that jump from the cliff, okay, to build that airplane, okay, to build that plane, okay? I keep giving the example of Zuma Rock here in Suleja. No Nigeria has been able to scale it. But not too long ago, some few years ago, some Americans came, broke down, so Western world came and scaled and climbed that hill. We all know the very popular hotel that was built beside that hill as a tourist attraction, okay? But today, that place is in dilapidation, though that hotel has been completed and furnished and all that, but nobody has lived there for one day because of fear, okay? So until we're able to overcome our fear, we'll have that basic challenge. So here is challenging us all, that even if you fail in your first attempt or you are rejected, just like people like Bill Gates, who IBM, for example, turned down, or Thomas Edison, who tried over 10 times before he was able to build the electric bulb, or Honda. When Honda started in Japan, the Japanese people laughed at them and said they will never succeed, but today Honda is a household name. Or the Wright brothers, as I said, who people laughed at or rejected, but today, because of them, we have the jumbo jets flying all over the world today. So like these people, you could also say, look, I will keep on going. Bill Gates, for example, when he approached IBM Machine, you know, IBM Machine, they are the creators and owners of this mainframe. Those are the kind of computers we have in those days. Mainframes occupied whole buildings. Okay, when Bill Gates approached them and said, look, I have this vision that within a decade, we can have microcomputers on the desks of every office in America and in every home. Okay, IBM people laughed at him, okay, and rejected him. Okay, but today, one of their greatest regrets is rejecting Bill Gates and Microsoft, because today we know what Microsoft has done. In every computer that you have in the world today, there is a Microsoft product that runs the system for you. That is what entrepreneurs do. You face rejection, move on. Okay, you say you're going to make a fool of yourself, it's yourself. If people reject you and say no, so what? Move on. Try some new other strategies. That is the way to go. Okay, that is the way to go. It's very important that we have that at the back of our mind. Lack of support. Many small businesses lack support in critical areas, and this includes the area of funding, because we talked about funding already. Few financiers are willing to support small business startups. Then we have the legal and regulatory support, difficulties in fulfilling registration requirements for companies. By the next few days, I think on the final day, that's when we'll be looking at business law. Here we'll be discussing about legal and regulatory issues, about registration of companies, about compliance requirement for you to be able to do business in Nigeria, about the issues of ease of doing business in Nigeria. You know, we talked a lot about ease of doing business. Nigeria was ranked very, very low in the area of ease of doing business, but I think things are beginning to improve. Okay, the processes of registering your company in Nigeria today has been reduced substantially to the extent that today, from the comfort of your home or your office or anywhere ever, you'll be able to register a company within 24 hours without necessarily seeking the support of a lawyer or so. So all these are areas of lack of support which people face. Okay, staying power. Most startup entrepreneurs like the staying power. So the moment they encounter a few challenges, they give up. Okay, that is again just like determination. So if entrepreneurship is what you really want to go into, you must stay the course and not give up. Okay, you have to be patient. Entrepreneurship is not a quick reach strategy. It's a lifelong project. Okay, so when you face any challenges, make sure that you stay the course. Do not give up. Okay, so like determination, you need the staying power. You need to say, yes, I'm ready to face the challenges that come with this. Okay, all right. So that is the hurdles that people face when they want to start small businesses. Now we're in the final home stretch. Sources of funding for small businesses. What are the sources of funding for small businesses or for any type of business whatsoever? We've listed them out here. We have equity, we have loans, grants, cooperative loans, crowdfunding. That is, these are the sources, various sources of funding for small businesses. Let's start by looking at the various sources. Equity. Equity is an investment made in the shares of people who get a return on their investment and appreciation on the capital they have invested. So equity is about investment. If you go to the stock market, for example, you see a business idea that you like, and then you buy shares into that business. That is equity. That's investing in the shares of the business. It's this kind of money that comes together that the entrepreneur now uses in starting that business, in building that business until it becomes a viable enterprise. Okay, so equity is a good source of funding for entrepreneurs. Okay, it is long-term in nature, and then gives the entrepreneur enough time for the business to be able to take root. So whatever business idea that you have today, okay, you think it's a very, very strong idea, then of course you can take it to the stock market for people to buy shares into that line of business. The money that comes will, of course, provide you the long-time opportunity to build on that business and then see how you'll be able to grow it. Because it is when that business takes root and becomes profitable that people now begin to derive their own interest in terms of dividends being paid to them for that investment. Equity funding can come from the following sources: comes from saving, comes from partners, investors, families. Okay, let's look at the saving component. Savings is a major challenge in all over the world, really. Not many people are able to save, because when you are a salary earner, for example, or you are into businesses, saving is a major challenge because of the various demands that we have on our resources in this country. If you are on a minimum wage of 30,000 naira, for example, in Nigeria today, how much are you likely to be able to save? Okay, how much are you going to be able to live on? If you want to start an enterprise, you should learn to set aside savings from whatever little resources that you have. Savings take a lot of effort, discipline, and sacrifice to be able to put money aside for the business to start. But the important thing is that you should be able to be disciplined enough to be able to set aside whatever little money you can, so that you'll be able to, when you need it, bring it out to start your own little business. So savings is a critical component of finding the resources you require to buy into equity. Okay, buy equity in the business that you are interested in. Partners can also bring in their own savings as equity. Okay, you can decide that instead of going into a business alone, you can bring one or two people who share your idea of that business. You pull your money together, bring their own savings, and then you can start that line of business. Okay, so that's pulling resources of your friends with you. Investors is a person who puts funds into something in order to get a return. Well, investors, just like they are the people that actually go into the stock market or come into believe in that line of business, and then come to bring in their funds to buy shares in it in return for the money they've invested. Then we have what we call the angel investors. These are wealthy private individuals who invest in business in exchange for some equity in the company. Yeah, angel investors mostly are, like we say, are very wealthy individuals who have enough funds they want to put into businesses they believe in, want to support young entrepreneurs who are looking for money to grow their business. Such angel investors actually are mentors they mentor those who are already in that line of business or who want to start their businesses because they've had a lot of wealth of experience in doing this line of business. So they bring in their money not because they want quick returns, but because they want to help you establish, set up, and then of course in due time, when the business becomes profitable, then they'll be able to also reap from their own investment along the line. But in the course of bringing in their money, they brought not just the money, but also their expertise, their experiences, and then mentorship services. So, of course, we talked about partners already, those to share in their idea and who bring in their own funds into that line of business also. Family and friends. Family and friends are usually the first source of investment for most young startups. Of course, I have this experience also. I've had my younger sons who, all of them have had their various type of businesses. They graduated, instead of going out looking for jobs like most people really, they come up with all this kind of fancy idea about one line of business or the other, all manners of startups today, which young men do have. And of course, the first set of people they approach are, they come together maybe as friends, they bring in their monies, their friends approach their parents who give them the money. And then of course, yours also approach you. And then of course, you provide them those initial seed money, which they use in trying to start up their business, register a company, start running around, sharing ideas, building the company's frame and stuff like that. So most times, for most young investors, family and friends are their first sources of investment. And that is an experience that many people have had, and I want to believe that many of you have also had the same kind of experiences. All right, loans. Loans are the other sources of funding. Of course, we are all on this project today because we want to access the AGSMEIS loan scheme. Okay, so a business loan is money given to an entrepreneur to finance the purchase of an asset or fund the business's recurrent expenditure. That is the clear definition of a loan. Okay, loans are either interest-bearing or non-interest-bearing. In the former, the borrower and the lender agree on the rate. The loan is tenured for a specific period, and at the end of the tenure or at maturity, the borrower must repay the loan to the lender together with the interest that has accrued. So that is what the loan is all about. The loan and the lender and the borrower have to agree on the rate. Okay, for the current loan scheme, for example, the loan ranges from 1 to 10 million. Okay, so between you and the lender, you have to agree on the rate. The interest rate here from this year is 5%. Okay, and then the tenure we say is seven years. So these are the terms. Okay, that's for the interest-bearing loans. Then there is a non-interest-bearing loan. These is based on Islamic principles of banking. Okay, here you are giving a loan and there is no interest element to it. Okay, there is a profit-sharing system which is agreed and which are based on Islamic doctrine. So we have the interest-bearing and then the non-interest-bearing loan scheme. Okay, for this one that we are in, it's an interest-bearing loan. Okay, so loans can be accessed from the following areas: from banks. Okay, banks take in money from depositors and lend at the margin. Today, commercial banks give out their loans at 26% to 30% interest rate. The microfinance banks are even more expensive, okay? But the AGSMEIS loan scheme, as we say, is one of the most easily accessible loan, very low interest rate, okay? And then a high tenure period within which the repayment period will be made, okay? Loans can also be accessed from partners, individuals who are also willing to give out loan to any person who wants to go into business, and then of course with an interest component to it also, right? So grants is another form of source of funding. Grants are funds given to small businesses by donor organizations. Usually the donor does not retain any interest in the business. However, to ensure that the money is actually being used for the purpose intended, the donor will set up processes to ensure that the project is properly implemented. Okay, so donor agencies, we have so many donor agencies, international donor agencies like the USAID, DFID, that are available and providing grants to individuals whose line of business they believe in. Okay, most times, most such businesses are social enterprises, really, NGOs, faith-based, and all of that. Okay, so here most, in fact, in some instances, the donor agencies actually don't give you the money, but they could give you implements, they could give you materials, they could give you expert advice and expertise that come to help work with you, set up that business and run that business. Okay, and some those that give the funds are able to maybe buy the required equipment and then supply them to the beneficiaries. Okay, so grants are given by government organizations, development partners, family trusts, not-for-profit organizations, and wealthy individuals. So these are the sources of grants in the country. All right, here are some of the other sources of grants. SMEDEN provides grants to small and medium enterprises in the country. DFID, which I just mentioned, Shell LifeWire Fund. Shell LifeWire Fund is owned by the Shell Development Company, the international IOC, International Oil Company that operates mostly in the Niger Delta area. Here they set up this LifeWire Fund. For quick, they're able to give grants to young Nigerians in the Niger Delta area who want to go into their own businesses, set up their own businesses. These kind of funds are encouraged really because they want to take as many young Nigerians as possible away from a life of militancy, away from the life of destroying oil pipelines in the creeks and then causing a whole lot of pollutions and destructions and damages in those areas. And many young chaps in the Niger Delta area have been able to access these Shell LifeWire funds, and they are doing for themselves very, very well. We have the Tisalat Easy Business Million Grants, also the T.Y. Anjuma Foundation. T.Y. Anjuma is doing a lot of work, for example, in the Northeast area, with the victim support project, for example, where they are able to provide all manners of support for the IDPs, providing them food, shelter, water, schooling materials, and the rest of those things. So these are areas that T.Y. Anjuma Foundation is being of great help in the country today. The Backup Industry also is supporting a lot of SMEs. The MTN Foundation is also doing similar. So these are some sources of grants in Nigeria today. All right, cooperative society, or cooperative loans, sorry. A cooperative society is an independent group of people who come together to offer mutual support and cooperation to each other. Individuals within the cooperative contribute money, and these funds are either used to fund activities of the cooperative or given out as loans to fund individual businesses or of interested members of cooperative. All right. In almost all organizations in the country today, we find that individuals have set up cooperative societies. Cooperative societies are very, very popular. The whole concept started in the southwest region of Nigeria. One of them grew up to be a major bank in the country today, merged as it were with some of the banks during these consolidation processes in the banking industry. But almost all over, many of these cooperative societies have also grown up to become microfinance banks. Okay, here people come together, people with the same interests come together, pooling their resources, pooling their funds together. And these funds are they use in either procuring some services for themselves, services which they require for themselves, okay, or giving out loans to their members. Some of these loans go into paying school fees, for example, paying rent, for example, to buy a car or to start businesses. That is what cooperatives are able to do for themselves, and then cooperative loans are able to do for members of such cooperatives. All right, okay? All right, crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is a new concept. Crowdfunding is a new concept. It's the process of raising funds for individuals through the internet. Okay, entrepreneurs approach the individuals through a recognized platform and make a pitch about their product, or individuals to sell. Individuals send in their money either to buy a reward or a return. Here, the crowdfunding process actually, like I say, is a new concept, but it's gaining a lot of grounds. And of course, we want some that have Ponzi schemes like the MLM that has caused so many Nigerians a lot of trouble. But there are those who are actually very, very genuine, like the M Global, Alliance Global Entrepreneurial crowdfunding process. Here, people come together, they have a product lines which they also sell, things like supplements, like toiletries, household items, drugs and things like that. And then of course, people buy into that scheme. You are able to introduce friends and relations into that platform. And then as you bring people who also buy into those products, into those product lines, then of course you are able to sell and then become you're able to generate money along the line, and such monies you could use in going into your own line of business. Others could pitch the same idea on the internet for social projects, for example, and then people who are interested in supporting the communities in whatever line of project the person floating the idea brings, are able to send money, contribute money towards that project, and then they watch as that project is implemented in support of the community. All these are sources of funding today in the world for purposes of doing business or starting a business. So these are, okay, so we have, as it were, come to the end of this paper. It's been quite lengthy. I want to thank you immensely for joining us, being patient to the very end. We will not throw open the floor so that we'll take any questions if there are any. Thank you very much for your time, for being a part of our day. Right, so if there are any comments, any questions, welcome them now.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Sorry. Yeah, hello. Okay,
hello?
yeah.
Okay,
yeah, hello,
this is Babajide speaking.
All right, Babajide, thank you.
Okay. Now, I find that many small enterprises, one of their major challenges, like you mentioned, is value added. Take, for example, you give an example of a tomato farm, and you spoke about when there's a glut in the market, and how do you handle your harvest when it's all over. So now, my thinking is your platform, why don't you provide maybe, I don't know, support for some companies that carry out value-added services that will take, you basically use the raw materials that are provided based on this first initiative. The reason why I say that is one of the major risks that you have for some of these businesses is where to put to markets. You know, the nature of the Nigerian market. Take, for example, the example you gave about corn, the ban on importation of corn, and what happened. Say there was a process for creating value added, then those businesses will not go down. And because it's a long-term thing, we must look at it. I believe that that's what the West does to continue to be sustained. I don't know what you think about this.
Yeah, it's a very good suggestion you have there. For us as a company, unfortunately, we are in this projects as partners with NISA Microfinance, essentially in the area of enlightenment, of training, and bringing some of these realities to our young entrepreneurs, those who want to go into this line of businesses, to highlight the risks that are there. And then that before you consider any of those line of businesses that you want to go into, these are things that you have to put into consideration, because the fallback really, those fallback positions that you talked about, the buffers provided by the Western world in terms of maybe subsidies and things like that, we might not have them here readily. And then those who are willing to take the shot might not be readily available. But one of the areas, one of the companies that has come up now to address some of these areas of short is NISA itself. The NISA company, not the NISA Microfinance now, but the NISA body itself. Okay, it's a risk-sharing initiative. Risk-sharing initiative for in agricultural businesses, for example. So these are that agency specifically came up because of these issues that we have just discussed, to be able to provide a buffer, to be able to provide that fallback position in case people in agri run into those kind of hitches because of changes in policy, which I just highlighted. Okay, for us, we might not be able to go in. We are just a management consulting firm trying to highlight some of those risk areas and then see how those who want to go into that line of business should have it at the back of their mind that as we are going to this line of business, these are things that we need to really think about and see what we can do to be able to provide the cover for ourselves. But it's a very, very good idea. And it's something that we want you to have to know, keep at the back of your mind as you go along in this venture which you are embarking on.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. All right. Christy Paul and then Mrs. Mohammed, you people haven't contributed anything. Can you speak to us? Christy Paul, Mrs. Mohammed, unmute your mic and let's hear from you.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hello, sir.
I can hear you.
Okay, sir. Well done, sir.
Thank you very much.
Can you hear me? Yes, sir. It
Very,
is a
very,
great,
very,
great,
very
great.
well.
Yes, I so much enjoy it.
Thank you very
I
much.
so much enjoy the lecture.
All right, madam. Thank you.
Yes, it was so great.
All right.
Well done, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, madam. I appreciate it.
Yes.
I wanted to hear your voice. Want to be sure that we are carrying everybody along, not that I alone will just be talking and talking. So it's good to hear that you heard us very loud and clear and you like the lecture. Okay.
Yes, I so much like it and understand everything.
All right, madam. Thank you very much. All right, Mrs. Mohammed, any comments? Mrs. Mohammed has disappeared. Okay, Sati, you have a last contribution before we wind up. The day is long gone.
Yes, sir. Just like the last speaker said, sir.
Yeah.
I know you have a kind of a limit to the services you are providing, sir.
Yeah.
All we are trying to say is that if you can maybe research into some of the ways of mitigating these
my battery is running down.
You know, some of these risks attended with maybe production, especially in the area of agricultural production, like the case he has mentioned.
Yeah.
The issue of tomatoes production, if there's the growth, what is the way out? So that you can at least proffer, suggestions to, prospective entrepreneurs during lecture hours like this. We have sunshine in this part of the world, and if there's an excess or if there's a glut, especially in tomato production, we can dry them. We can slice them into, pieces and dry them. As far as to, minimize loss or losses rather. Yes, so drying also is another way to mitigate that, to solve that problem. It might not reduce the value per se. It might not reduce the value so much. And there are people, of course, people buy dry tomatoes in the market. Yes.
Yeah, they do.
So that one too is an option. You understand? And then so you can research into things like that, by considering our own climate here. Maybe some of the researches you make will tailor towards some of the major areas of production, especially in the agricultural sector. So that when you are lecturing, you just provide some solutions. Okay, in case you have these, you can do this, you can do this. You understand? So I'm making suggestions.
Okay. No, it's a very good one. I think that's something I will have to look into really. You're making the presentation, when you're making a generalized, generic presentation like that, you look at so many things, you talk on so many things, and then just like eye openers really to tickle the fancies of your participants so that they have that at the back of your mind. So that's what we try to achieve mostly. Okay, but now that you have challenged that, we should go beyond that and then try to see what mitigatory factors that we can also bring online in the course of these discussions. We'll try to do that. It's just a function of the time but we'll try to see how we'll be able to factor in that area. And I think I will maybe try to see if we can bring an agricultural economist or an agricultural person with agricultural background to help us do some of this look at some of these areas for us in the course of this discussion. And then tomorrow we'll be looking at feasibility studies and business plans. My colleague there, I'm sure you can be able to raise that issue with him also. Maybe he'll be able to add some more idea in that area. But I think the suggestions that you have made, that's something that we need to look into, not just to look on it peripherally, but a little bit more in depth to be able to see the suggestions that we'll be able to bring, especially in these areas of agricultural preservation and the like. I really like the contributions here.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right. So thank you very, very much for being with us. Many, I'm sure, are on YouTube and are not able to ask the questions, but I'm sure the questions that you have asked will also go a long way into contributing to their own understanding. I want to thank you immensely for sharing the better part of your day with us. The day is long spent. So we'll close the class now. We'll reconvene again this time tomorrow by 10, starting with a pre-lecture quiz also. We'll be looking at feasibility studies and then business plans. My colleague Omanchi will come in to take that course, and I'm sure you will enjoy him very, very much also. All right, on this note, thank you very, very much. Have a wonderful day ahead of you, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Okay, bye-bye.